Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, welcome. My name is Monica, and for those who are not new, welcome back. Today's video, I want to show some love to Sebastian York. So, first of all, forgive the redness of my eye. Unfortunately, I have a lot of well, I don't have a lot of allergies, but I do have some seasonal allergies and it's just bothering me. My eye's a little dry. So once I'm done filming this video, I will be putting on my glasses. And I do have to film another video after this for the week. So you'll probably see me with my glasses after that because my eyes need a break from my contacts. But I digress. We are here to talk about Sebastian York and how much we all love him. Okay, so for those who do not know or are not in audiobook land, Sebastian York is a very, very popular male audiobook narrator. He has, when I checked his stats in Audible, he has 518 titles. Sebastian York. So that is a pseudonym. That's not his real name. We don't know who he is. We do not want to know who he is because he wants his privacy to be maintained. So if you ever find out who he is, please do not let me know. I would like to live in the world that he creates. One of the things that I love about his voice is that it's very raspy, it's very manly, it's very like, I feel every time I see him, I think about like a very gruff smoker, very manly man who drinks whiskey out of the bottle. Very domineering. That's the type of guy that I feel like is in my head every time I hear his voice. And he was one of my first audiobook narrators. So one of the things I do want to mention is that he works with a lot of the same authors. He works a lot with Lauren Blakely, Keeland and Penelope Ward, Lily Valenti, Rena Kent, Anna Zaire. He did the Tormentor series. That series he played a Russian assassin, and oh my gosh, his Russian accent was really good. I really enjoyed that book. I really enjoyed, I think his name was Peter Sokolov. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Anyway, that's the name of the character. But whew, that was a really good book. But yeah, he does a lot with Anna Zaire, whose pen name is Misha Bell. That's where she writes her rom-coms, as well as Corinne Michaels. So he also does a lot of other authors. I mean, 518 books, he'd be doing a lot. For example, for some of my favorites that I'm not going to be talking about, Absolution by Ava Harrison. He's done a few with Ava Harrison. He did Entice, which was the second book in the Price family series, or trilogy, I guess it was. It was really good. I loved that book, as well as the Stopover and the Takeover. People don't really like the Stopover, and I can understand. Jameson's, you gotta have a kind of a palette for that type of character for Jameson Miles. But I loved her, like that character, and I cannot remember her name right now, but she saved his bacon when he was being framed for something he didn't do, and she saved him from going to jail. And so after they were having an office fling, and then he decides to give her friendship flowers, which was like, I think, yellow roses, and she basically murdered those flowers in the middle of the street. I loved it. I was like, you go, girl. Anyway, so yes, that one is fantastic, but everybody loves, and I agree, the Takeover. I mean, the way he narrated those kids, specifically Harrison, when he's like going tick-tock, I loved that. Such a good book, and his narration was on point for that one. Then Darling Venom. I keep wanting to call it my Darling Venom. Devious Life by Parker S. Huntington. Both of those are very good reads. Both of those you really do need to check trigger warnings. Any Anna Zaire's books, you need to check trigger warnings because she writes some dark stuff. As well as Flawless by Elsie Silver. He brought Rhett to life, who is our rodeo bull rider guy. And then, of course, To Hate Adam Connor by Ella Maise. Adam Connor, the single dad, he had the DILF. The movie star, award-winning movie star that Lucy decides to stalk and then saves his son from drowning, and it's Hate to Love, and I love that book. That book is just perfect. But I've talked about that book a lot. And I will always talk about that book because it's one of my favorites of all time. That and Sustained. Emma Chase. Sustained is like this lawyer. He's a real jerk. But the mom, the single mom, and it's her sister's 6 kids. Her sister and her brother-in-law died in a car crash. And so she's taken guardianship over these 6 kids. And one of the 6 kids pickpockets Sebastian York's character, and it goes from there, and it's wonderful. I love that book. As well as River Wild by Samantha Towle. River Wild is a woman on the run from her abusive ex-husband, who is a police officer. It's kind of like Safe Haven by Nicholas Sparks, but actually done better. Anyway, and be very cautious when going into that book because there is on-page abuse. There is flashbacks to childhood sexual abuse. There's just a lot in that book, but it is such a gorgeous book. The way Samantha Towle wrote it, and he brought those characters to life in such a way that was just he has talent. Sebastian York can narrate his butt off with a book. Let's just get to some of the books that I do want to highlight. Now, the first book, because I have my notes, because this is the second time I've filmed this, and the first time I didn't have notes, and I was a bumbling mess where I was just not talking well. I need my notes. But I wanted to make sure that I gave you all the correct information. So, the first book that I listened to that he narrated was Hate Notes by Keeland and Penelope Ward. This was narrated by Sebastian York and Lynn Barrington. It's very slow burn. It's workplace irritated. They irritated each other. They didn't like each other. I guess it was dislike. It's not really hate to love, but it's irritated / dislike to friends to lovers. And they work towards a common goal by the end of this book. The characters are Reed Eastwood and Charlotte Darling. So Charlotte, the way this book is set up at the very beginning is Charlotte Darling has been dumped by her fiance. Well, he cheated on her. So she's no longer getting married. She has no money because her fiance was her boss's son, which means she no longer has a job. And so she's been trying to find a job, can't find a job, so she decides to sell her very expensive, I think it was like Marchesa wedding dress. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, so she goes to this vintage clothing shop, and while they're trying to price out this very exclusive dress, she is looking through the racks and comes across this beautiful wedding dress that catches her eye. So she decides to go try it on. When she tries it on, she finds this blue note that is stitched in the lining of the wedding dress. So she opens it up, and it's a little love note, and what was printed on the heading was from the office of Reed Eastwood. So she got this guy's name, and she gets the dress because she can't get cash for her dress. And she goes home, puts on the dress, gets drunk on wine, decides to look up Reed Eastwood, finds out that he owns with his family a very exclusive real estate business in New York City where she is living. And she makes an appointment with this most outrageous resume, because I guess you have to apply to even see these type of apartments because they're very luxurious, very luxe, very exclusive. Anyway, so she makes up and it's kind of really weird. Like, some of the stuff she comes up with is ridiculous. So she decides to go ahead and go to this appointment just to see this guy. After she sobers up, he plays along at first, and he's like, all right, I had enough. And he gets really angry with her. I mean, kind of rightfully so. She's wasting his time. But he sticks it to her in such a way that is actually very horrible. He doesn't know that her life is in the toilet. He just knows what he knows. Anyway, and he thinks she's a lunatic. And I mean, some of the things she puts on her resume is pretty crazy. But that's kind of the genius of part of it. But she ends up running out of the apartment, goes down to the lobby, gets into the bathroom, starts crying. And this older lady's like, what's going on? And our heroine, Charlotte Darling, decides to spill the tea and tells this wonderful old woman exactly what's been going on, up to the point where she talks about Reed Eastwood. Anyway, this woman offers her a executive administration job because, honestly, Charlotte gave it right back to him. So, and she does mention this to the woman. The woman gives her a job as an admin, an executive administrator, and the next day when she shows up at work, but who does she bump into but Reed Eastwood? Anyway, the older lady is Reed's grandmother, who owns the real estate firm. And he's like, he keeps telling his grandmother, like, she's crazy, you need to get rid of her. His grandmother's like, no, and you need to treat her well. I loved his grandmother. She really, really could put him in his place, and she was fantastic. And I love the heart that she brought to the story. So anyway, she starts working for him, and he's kind of not the best guy to work for. But eventually they come to this truce, and then he finds out that she has this thing called the F-it list, and it's a list, kind of like a bucket list, but you're not dying. So this is stuff that she just wanted to do, and it was because her whole life basically blew up. So she's learning how to do all these really crazy things, like learning to drive a semi-truck, and I can safely say I've never wanted to learn how to drive a semi-truck, but hey, to each their own. But he has things he wanted to do too, so he made his own F-it list. They start helping each other fulfill what's on their list. He even helps her find her biological mother. Here's the thing with this is that he doesn't tell her at first why he's no longer getting married, why though he has an ex-fiance instead of a wife. And I'm gonna put a spoiler here because I feel like you need to know this before going into it. And I don't feel like it was used as a plot device, but again, this is my take on it. But the reason why I'm putting a spoiler here is because Reed, when his ex-fiance left him after he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis or MS, he's a virile, independent man who did rock climbing, who did all this stuff. He was very active, very independent. The way his ex-fiance talked to him, and she decided she did not want to deal with it. She didn't want to have a husband in a wheelchair. She left him, and it really took a toll on him. So while he was very attracted to Charlotte for a very long time, this is why he's slow burn, he would not act on it because he didn't want to burden her with his MS, and this was perceived by how he was treated by his ex-fiance. So Hate Notes was my first Sebastian York book, and I started reading by Keeland and Penelope Ward because of it. But I also started going after looking for most of his backlist. I mean, I obviously have not gone through all his backlists. He has a ton. But one of the books that he led me to was called Easy Charm by Kristen Proby. This is book 2 in the Boudreaux series. This is a sports romance. He narrates it with Rachel Fliginetti. I am saying that wrong, but I am sorry. This is friends to lover sports, small town, single mom. So Gabrielle Boudreaux is the baby of the Boudreaux clan. They own the shipping empire. They're billionaires. She wants to do things on her own. So she turned her family's old plantation home into a bed and breakfast. In the first book, we meet Kate, who marries one of Gabrielle's older brothers. And Kate has a cousin named Maurice O'Shaughnessy. Maurice is a famous Chicago Cubs pitcher. Yeah, he's a pitcher. And he is out right now because he has gotten hurt. So Reese has gone to the bed and breakfast to rehabilitate, and they become friends. Gabrielle's son, Sam, loves baseball, knows who Reese O'Shaughnessy is, and they bond, and it's beautiful, and it is very kind of insta-lovey, but wasn't irritated by the insta love. It worked for me. And you do see some baseball in it. He's doing PT, he's practicing. And then at the end, you get to see him pitch in a game, and there's some talk about the wives and the girlfriends and all of that. And I loved it. I thought it was a really, really well done book, and it is an older one. So I like the Boudreaux series. It's one of her better ones. And it's a baseball romance. And I don't see a lot of baseball romances, but it is great. And Sebastian York did a fantastic job. So I highly recommend you check that one out. But also, right around the pandemic, a book came out that, of course, I checked out because it was Sebastian York, and it was By a Thread by Lucy Score. And this one, he also tries to get her fired. Well, he does, and then he doesn't. So Dominic Russo and Ali Morales, they're both older characters. She has come back to New York. She is in financial straits. She's working at a pizzeria shop, among other jobs. Because her father has dementia, is in a privately owned assisted living facility for people with dementia, and she can barely pay his way. But she doesn't want to have him in a state-run facility for obvious reasons, because when you know, you know. Anyhow, they meet when he would not get off his cell phone, and she was having a bad day, and she hates her job. So she basically tells him that he needs to get the heck off his cell phone. She stands up for herself and the other people. He gets very angry. He's there with his mom for dinner. He orders a pepperoni pizza. She comes out and she writes in pepperoni F you. And I was like, oh, I love that. That was fantastic. Anyway, he gets her fired from her job that she hated at the pizzeria. But also, his mother hires her for the admin pool at the fashion magazine that they own. And he tries to get his mom to not have her work there, and her mom's like, no, absolutely not. She stood up for herself, and she's like, you're just being a dick, because he was. They do battle for a while until he figures out exactly why she was working where she was working. Amateur striptease night, so she could get some money quickly, because they're about to kick her dad out of the living facility. And he's like, let me help you. They end up helping each other. There's a lot of things that happened prior to her working at this magazine. He took over from his father because his father's very toxic, kind of like a Harvey Weinstein character. So, yeah. And so it's a little forbidden because they're not really supposed to be together because of the new policies. But it's beautiful. I really enjoyed it. I laughed out loud. He did both. Aaron Mallon and Sebastian York, they work well together. They can bounce off each other. And the fact is that the tagline for this one, or it wasn't a tagline, it was in the description that says, Dominic was staring at me like he couldn't decide whether to chop me into pieces or pull my hair and French kiss me. That dialogue right there explains what that book is about. It's fantastic. I recently reread it and it absolutely holds up, so I highly recommend you go check out By a Thread by Lucy Score. Then he did romantic suspense with Bad Mother by Mia Sheridan, but I actually want to talk about Reckless Refuge by Catherine Cowles. This is book 4 in her Wrecked series. He co-narrates this with Ava Harrison, and they play Shay and Brody, and both of them have very tragic pasts. So Shay's brother murders her parents with a knife, a kitchen knife, and now is in a psychiatric facility, and he's taunting her from it. His name's Michael. I watch horror. I read horror. So when I found out his name was Michael, I picked this one up before I picked up any in the Rec series. This book is what brought me down my Catherine Cowles rabbit hole because of Michael and because of Sebastian York, because of the similarities. But anyway, so he's taunting her. So she's hiding out on this private island where she works as the groundskeeper. Brody, who is a very famous artist, street artist, his work is really dark. Well, a serial killer had actually been using his work as a way to stage his killings. And that took a real toll on him, and he decided to leave New York City and move to this private island. So he buys this private island, and that she's being a caretaker of, and they end up becoming friends and bonding, and they fall in love through like shared tragedies, and because what he went through was very traumatic for him, what she went through was very tragic tragic for her. However, their paths do come up again, and they really work together to protect each other. And their chemistry is very palpable. I love Catherine Cowles' writing. It's a good suspense story, and it's a very sweet love story. So I highly recommend you check out Reckless Refuge as well. Sebastian York does a fantastic job. But also, he also did Luca Vitiello. This is a I wouldn't want to call it retelling. So Cora Reilly wrote Bound by Honor, which is Luca Vitiello and Aria Scuderi. It's a arranged marriage mafia between the Chicago outfit and the New York familia. Luca is very much an anti-hero. He's very horrible. He does some really bad things on page, and I could not stand him through Aria's point of view. I did not even really enjoy Aria, but I was interested enough to want to find out what his point of view was, and I know that she had written Bound by Honor in his point of view, which is called Luca Vitiello. And honestly, I prefer this one a lot better. Sebastian York, he brought Luca to life like no other person could. And oh my gosh, he is very much, he has a conscience, but he's damaged. But he's also very strategic, very not forgiving, very hard, and what he does is so not good. And some of the things that I really got angry with him over about, I actually understood his motivations because of Luca Vitiello. So to me, I'd skip Bound by Honor and just go to Luca Vitiello. That's what I wish I had done, because I liked it a lot better because that book was a lot stronger. The story was stronger through his point of view, not Ariel's point of view, because Ariel's honestly kind of a weak character and Luca is not. Anyway, so those are some of the books that I wanted to highlight. And if you have any favorite Sebastian York books that he narrated, please let me know down below, because I obviously have not read all of his backlist, because there's 518. So yeah. Anyway, if you made it this far in this video, please leave me a red heart emoji, and I will talk to you in my next video. And until then, happy reading, everybody. Bye.